Hello class and welcome. We're going to do chapter 14's selection today, which is the organization as a theater. We've been learning about the symbolic and cultural frame, and what this chapter does is it gives you a way to see, to smell, to think about the idea of how this symbolic interaction and these symbols can come together to create a tapestry of meaning within an organization that represents its culture. So the organization as theater metaphor is going to be the through line of the chapter, and organizational theater works in a way to understand that theater plays to both the internal and external audience. So there's a front stage and a backstage behavior that goes along with the organization as a theater metaphor. Think about a stage performance. You have the external audience, who are the people who have paid, who are sitting in seats and watching the performance that plays out on the stage. They are evaluating the authenticity, the reasonableness of the story, the way that the actors interpret their lines, all the things that come along with the external and performative evaluation therein. There's also the internal that goes along with a theater performance. If you have never acted on stage, there's the drama that goes on between actors and actresses about how they feel the director is treating them, about how many lines they have, about the role that they've been casted and its reasonability to who they are. Do they feel like they're getting a great opportunity? Do they feel like they're being held back? There's also pressures that go on where you might, from an external perspective, have no idea that the lead of the play is terribly sick with the flu and struggling to get through every single scene. But everyone on the backstage who is in the internal part of the performance knows all about that. So these external and internal audiences represent the kind of front stage, backstage behavior that you can think about when you're talking about how culture is performed within and outside of an organization. Now, a convincing dramaturgical performance reassures the external constituents, and it builds confidence level, and it keeps criticism at bay. So thinking about this and extending this metaphor to the concept of the corporation or an organization, it's one that makes people believe in the culture that you're trying to represent. Think all the way back to chapter 12 when I used the analogy of the big oil company that wants you to focus through advertising on the small amount of money that they put forth to alternative fuel sources. That is a performance that hopefully builds confidence in their willingness to protect the environment. It keeps criticism at bay of them being for profit only and not caring about what they do to the ecology of the surrounding area of which they drill. All that is a performative element that represents the organization as a theater. So there's dramaturgical and institutional theory. Dramaturgical theory is an internally focused method, and institutional theory is an externally focused method. We'll stick on dramaturgical for a moment first, and it's focused on the organizational participants as players in the drama. It thinks about who's the lead actor, who is the hero or heroine of the story, who is the villain. It casts with meaning the powers that be and the behaviors of the organization within a familiar rubric of understanding. I'll give you an example from your day-to-day life that I hope crystallizes the dramaturgical perspective for you. Think about it this way. If you're a member of a sorority or fraternity on campus, you have the people who are part of your interior group within that sorority or fraternity, your best friends within that group. Then you have the outliers, people who are also a member of the sorority or fraternity, but aren't your closest of friends or allies. Well, when decisions are being made for the group, it's easy to stack the political frame on top of this frame to get a glimpse into heroes and villains, good guys and bad guys, the people who are trying to do the right thing versus the usurpers who are trying to distract from what the right thing is for their own personal gain. This is the highlight that the organizational participants are playing out this drama of how the organization's inner workings function. If you've ever asked someone how their day at work went, and they give you the Shakespearean analysis of who did what to whom and all the relationships that connect therein, they're giving you a dramaturgical analysis of that particular day at the office, so to speak. Institutional theory is externally focused, and it's about projection. It talks about how you present your image to an external audience for better or for worse. Institutionalized organizations focus more on appearance than on performance. It is about showing shareholders or showing customers that you are doing the things that you said you are going to do and doing the things that they think you ought to do. I think that the political frame, once again, stacked atop of this potential theory, does a good job from the multi-frame analysis to start to show you that organizations, through the politics of what story we agree to tell, give you an institutionalized viewpoint of how the organization is looked upon by outsiders who don't know that internal struggle. Let's say, for example, that you were going to select a running mate, and you selected running mate X. Running mate X has certain qualifications that can be framed in a positive light. No matter whether it is true or not, you are always to say that running mate X was your first choice. Let's imagine a world where in the front stage, backstage politics of what has gone on, that running mate X is your third or fourth choice. You still say to the outside world that that person was the number one choice of your campaign. Here, an institutionalized representation of this selection process and the selection itself is presented. The organization, represented as the campaign, tells a narrative, a story, that has cultural resonance on the basis of the pick that was made for vice president. And you see ultimately that the projection of its accuracy is what people evaluate. So it is much more the appearance rather than the true qualities or the competition that took place in that selection process. So that's why that theater analogy is going to keep serving us again and again throughout this chapter. And it's the idea that you are privy as an audience member to only the external part, to only the part that's shown, and you don't know what happened behind the scenes to make that action, that play, that hook, that captivating part that they show you, that veneer that they're putting forward. You don't know what made that happen. So when goals are ambiguous and performance hard to measure, you can get organizations that ultimately maintain shareholder support by staging the right play. So it uses the example of universities and many government agencies. And it is that you can't really evaluate what goes on in the EPA and the strengths and weaknesses of that potential organization because you don't get to see the committee meetings, the organizational conflict that goes on, to meet regulations, to change regulations, or to force other companies to adhere to your regulations. Nor do you have any idea what's going on within the university to make the decisions that are happening around you. There is a front stage, backstage decision that goes on, and the people backstage or in the internal section make a choice and then they sell it to you. And that salesmanship is the external or institutionalized part of what you see. You often get the tip of the iceberg analogy when you're talking about dramaturgical and institutional theory, and that's that you see only a very small part of what went in to making this performance believable. So we're going to talk about the organizational structure as theater and the organizational process as theater. Structure and process are very different. So we'll see the structure compared to theater as the stage, arrangement of lights, props, costumes. So literally, like we talked about in the structural frame, the pieces and how they fit together. The better a structure for your theater, the more vivid and credible the things that you're doing look. We've all seen a battle scene, say on Game of Thrones, or on a very well-produced and well-funded television program, and it looks sadly and horrifically gory. It looks realistic, authentic, and it draws out emotion. We've also seen battle scenes that are in low-budget shows or films that have fewer actors, that have less realistic and less authentic reactions to what goes on, and it makes the drama less vivid and less credible. It reflects and expresses the values and the myths of an organization, extending this analogy. So let's think about it in this way. If you're talking about public schools, and public schools in your area are either going to be considered good, and property value will therefore go up, or public schools might be considered bad, and property value will go down. As a real-life example, my wife and I use the public schools in certain areas as the number one deciding factor to choose one set of houses versus another set of houses to look at. So how do public schools as an organization reassure the stakeholders, the external audience, the potential parents and students who take part in those public schools? There's a variety of different ways. They can talk to you about the credentials of the actors, the teachers. They can talk about their degrees, about their certifications, about how talented they are. If I told you, and this is farcical, but let's imagine it, that a public school had all Ivy League teachers, well, that would be a very highly sought after public school, because you could assume that these Ivy League trained teachers were especially well educated, intelligent, thought-provoking, and would be the type of people that could till the fertile ground of a young mind to get the best out of them. You also have the building and the grounds. If a building looks shabby and dilapidated, I don't want to pick on anywhere in the area, but let's say you were driving around and you saw a building that looked like it was nearly condemned, that it could have asbestos or God knows what growing inside of it. Here we'll take an example from the Twitterverse, and if you've looked at any of the Detroit public schools tweets and posts that have gone out where they show the dilapidated conditions in which students are and teachers are forced to try to enact education, well, that is the opposite of reassuring. That makes people really uncomfortable that that's not a choice school district to be in, because those grounds look awful. The building, the structure and design of the play that's going on is just ugly. And it doesn't make it seem like the people are going to be able to be credible and successful within that organizational play, so to speak. I'll give you one last piece, and everybody who's been to the theater knows that a good script goes a long way towards making the successful engagement, or to make an engagement boring, flat, unrealistic, make the drama less vivid. And that's the curriculum. The comparison there extends to the idea that the curriculum mirrors society's expectations. It's a college preparatory school that prepares you for that to which you will face in college and thusly, hopefully, uniquely fit you for better job opportunities. If education is a means to an end in order to achieve the goal of better employment, of a better lifestyle, then the curriculum as a script is the way in which you're going to do this. Let's not just think about it for public schools either. The university, this is why I put this, they're both from the educational field, but you yourself engaged in this, in the selection process for what organization, what university you chose to go to. Colleges all the time are judged first by the actors, the student body themselves. What's their age? What's their relative endowment? Their comparison on SAT, ACT scores. What is the beauty of the campus? Whenever you go around, is it luxurious? Are there options for student activities and a student activity center that are robust and attractive and give you opportunities to enjoy yourself in addition to learning? What's the faculty to student ratio? How much attention will you be given in a classroom? Will you be in a faceless sea of hundreds of students in a lecture hall? Or will you be in one-on-one, not one-on-one, but 1-on-10, low ratios where you're having a much more group discussion-based class? What kind of degrees from elite institutions do your faculty have? So you can extend the structural analogy of the theater to many different organizations, but now what I hope you see is you've evaluated organizations from these very metrics. You've used these ideas even if you weren't aware of the fact that you were doing so. And so now let's look at organizational processes theater. So instead of just the structure, there's also the activities, the planning, the performance appraisals, etc. often fail to produce the intended outcome, yet they persist because they help sustain organizational drama. That's a nice way of saying a lot of times we have meetings that don't yield anything. The meetings almost seem pointless to a certain degree. They're a bureaucratic necessity. We have meetings on Tuesday for this committee, not because this committee is valuable, but because this meeting on Tuesday is what keeps the committee sustaining itself, and that committee is a rubber stamp to move an idea forward. There are also performance appraisals that don't necessarily net you either A, to be fired, or B, a wage increase. So what's the real purpose of such an appraisal? So scripts and stage markings cue actors of what to do and how to behave. If I am planning to direct a performance and I'm giving you blocking instructions on where to stand and what to do and how to hold yourself, and I'm giving you scripts of what to say, so too do the activities within an organization provide you a process-oriented method of understanding what to do and how to behave. Do people who get performance appraisals in their favor and have them very high, do they succeed within an organization? Opportunities for self-expression and forums for airing grievances become the opportunity for the internal struggles of an organization to be displayed to an empowered party to make decisions about how to rectify those problems. It reassures audiences, who in this case are the internal audience, that the organization is well managed and that the important problems are being addressed, and that, in Officer Bar Brady from South Park's words, there's nothing to see here, folks. So, what did we talk about? We talked about how organizations are judged by their appearance. We extended the analogy of the organizational theater. And we talked about dramaturgical, and we talked about institutional theory. Drama provides powerful symbolic functions, engaging people, explaining normative behaviors, in giving us value and giving our behavior and actions within an organization meaning. If I were writing a response paper on this particular chapter, I'd be interested to hear you talk to me about how in your life the dramaturgical perspective has played a role. It doesn't even need to be in a formal organization, even in a family or in an informal organization. How do you make the connection between this theory and how it pieces things together? Another response paper that is another case study idea, but one that I'd really be interested in, if you had a bunch of different choices in colleges, why did you make the choice for Henderson State? What brought you here? It's a little bit biographical, and it's a nice way for me to get to know you a little bit better, and it also hopefully uses the exact method that we talked about in this chapter for a decision-making model that you did yourself. Those would probably be the response papers that I would do if I were in your position. This concludes the symbolic frame. I think that we did a good job hammering out the most important parts of this particular unit, and therefore the test should go smoothly. People seem to be doing pretty consistently on their papers, and I'm looking forward to reading them all whenever I'm able to sit down and actually enjoy the process. If anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. I look forward to hearing from you, and have a nice day.